Hello, and welcome to another Genshin Impact video. My name's Blossoms, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing off a couple of the talents and constellations of Venti, the Anemo bow user. Now, a lot of you have been calling Sucrose the budget Venti, so I'm here to see what all the hype is about. And yes, I am a little bit late because his banner's gone and they can't get him anymore, but we're still doing a showcase. Anyway. With that said, let's go ahead and hop into the talents. For Venti's first talent, we have his normal attack, Divine Marksmanship. Perform up to 6 consecutive shots with the bow, and then his charge attack is perform a more precise aim shot with an increased damage while aiming. Favorable winds will accumulate on the arrowhead. A fully charged wind arrow will deal Anemo damage. It's very interesting compared to most ways that you proc Anemo, considering it's a bow. You would expect this from a bow user, and their charge shot is just a little bit different with Anemo, proccing swirl instead of having its, normal effect. But here are the skill attributes for those of you interested. And then this is his normal and charge attack. His normal attack pattern, pretty sick pattern there. And then the charge attack here. One thing to note on this charge attack, by the way, is one of his constellations allows you to shoot 3, so you'll see the 3 shoot out there. That is not the usual, but that's what it looks like overall. And we're gonna jump on top of a box here, get that plunge attack. Nothing too special with the plunge attack, seems to be about the same as your normal bow user. For Venti's second talent here, we have Skyward Sonnet. A wind upon which all hymns and songs fly, bear these earth walkers up into the sky. He's all about the rhyming, right? But on press, summons a wind domain at the enemy's location, dealing AoE Anemo damage and launching enemies into the air. On hold, it summons an even larger wind domain with Venti as the epicenter, dealing AoE Anemo damage and launching affected enemies into the air. After unleashing the hold version of this ability, Venti rides the wind into the air. Enemies hit by Skyward Sonnet will fall to the ground slowly. And then these are the skill attributes for those of you interested. And this is one of the things that makes Venti like S tier in the open world, is just being able to use this. That's the press effect, and then the hold effect is what really makes like Venti like S tier. It just creates a little updraft for you, which is kind of broken, just kind of allows you to traverse the world a lot easier. It's also just a nice AoE with a relatively decent cooldown, nothing too crazy. For Venti's third talent and his elemental burst here, we have Wind's Grand Ode. It fires off an arrow made of countless coalesced winds, creating a huge storm eye that sucks in objects and enemies along its path, dealing continuous AoE Anemo damage, And it also procs elemental absorption, so anything you throw in there, it'll also proc that swirl and do additional damage with X element. And then these are the skill attributes for those of you interested. And one thing to note here is that he has 60 energy cost, which is fairly low, along with a relatively low cooldown and a pretty decent duration. And this is one of the huge things that makes Venti like so strong, is his ability to be able to spam his ult so often, since the cooldown is so low and the energy cost is so low. It just kind of allows you to keep using it all the time. And then one of his other talents in here just kind of breaks it all together. But to see what I'm talking about, we will go ahead and shoot that off. Has a little cutscene, and then creates basically a black Anemo hole over here, just pulling in everything and dealing damage. One thing to note is, I don't personally have Venti, but I have been using him in this dungeon a little bit. It does seem just a little bit hard to pull, to determine exactly where that goes. The elemental burst, that is. So, that is kind of annoying sometimes, but honestly, I have the same problem with Sucrose. It's just a product of how the elemental burst works, I guess. For Venti's fourth talent here, we have Embrace the Winds. Holding Skyward Sonnet creates an up current that lasts for 20 seconds. We already saw that happen. Yes, it creates that up current, and it just remains there for a while, so even if you mess up your initial glide, it doesn't matter, you can come back and redo it. Moving on to his fifth talent here, this is what breaks Venti. Storm Eye regenerates 15 energy for Venti after the effects of Wind's Grand Ode end. If an elemental absorption occurred, This also restores 15 energy to all characters of that corresponding element in the party. So when you note here, you see his elemental burst in the bottom right there already has, you know, some cooldown back. And then if it procs elemental absorption, which most of the time it is going to, it's also going to give 15 energy to the rest of your party, which is absolutely insane. That's just a lot of energy. And then on top of that, it basically makes his elemental burst here only 45 energy cost instead of 60, which is even crazier. So you can see how elemental burst spam is just super prevalent with this character, and definitely going to be the way you want to build him. Probably, you only probably need one energy recharge to be able to spam his ultimate, I would imagine, and then you can just kind of focus on damage for the rest. But moving on, for his final talent, his passive talent is Wind Rider, decreases all party members' gliding stamina consumption by 20%. Nice little thing to have in the open world. As I said, Venti is pretty top tier in terms of open world exploration. Now to the constellations. The first constellation we already went over fires 2 additional arrows per aim shot, each dealing 33% of the original arrow's damage. And then onto the second talent here, we have Breeze of Reminiscence. Skyward Sonnet decreases enemies' Anemo resistance by 12% for 10 seconds. Enemies launched by Skyward Sonnet suffer an additional 12% Anemo resistance, and physical resistance decrease while airborne. This is pretty darn strong, especially because this is playing off the fact that you're going to be able to deal more damage with Venti, and then he is going to deal more damage to the things in the air falling as he shoots them with arrows. Kind of interesting, you know, we have seen the slow down enemy like fall effect on Jean before. This is also kind of doing that same thing, but also debuffing and increasing Venti's attack. Pretty interesting. I don't know if it's like the most broken constellation ever, but still cool. For the third constellation, we have Ode to the Thousand Winds. There was no "the" in there. I just put it in there because I can't read. But it increases the level of Wind's Grand Ode by 3. Nothing too crazy. We've seen it before. Fourth constellation, Hurricane of Freedom. When Venti picks up an elemental orb or particle, he receives a 25% Anemo damage bonus for 10 seconds. That's kind of insane, considering he's already debuffing people over here. He's getting a 25% Anemo damage bonus, and you're going to be spamming his elemental burst all the time anyway. I guess this is kind of what is separating him into that 5-star category. To the fifth constellation, the Concerto dal Cielo. I probably butchered that, that's okay. Increase the level of Skyward Sonnet by 3, maximum upgrade is 15, not bad. Sixth constellation, Storm of Defiance. Targets who take damage from Wind's Grand Ode have their Anemo resistance decreased by 20%. If an elemental absorption occurred, then the resistance towards the corresponding element is also decreased by 20%. That's kind of nuts. In the grand scheme, I mean, I don't know if you're building out a C6 Venti, but if you did take advantage of that banner and have a C6 Venti, then I don't know why he wouldn't be on your team. He debuffs a shit ton, and he can absolutely just spam that elemental burst. Now, before we get into the build portion, as it is going to be brief as I don't have his character, can't really test things out, as per usual, just one of the trial showcases here. This is his general little lore. It's pretty short, but you can pause and take a read if you would like. Now, for building Venti, we already talked about kind of, you definitely want energy recharge in here, as it's just going to make getting his ult that much easier. However, don't go overboard with it. As I said, you probably only need one energy recharge artifact, and you'll be totally fine to go. As for sets for Venti, I'd probably go with something like Viridescent Venerer. Don't know how to say that, Venerer? Anyway, I'd probably go with something like that. You get an Anemo damage bonus, and it increases your swirl damage by 60%, decreases opponent's elemental resistance to the element infused with swirl by 40%. This is a pretty broken set for any Anemo character, especially if you're using them as a DPS support. However, if you are using Venti more as a DPS main, then I'd probably do something like Exile's Feather set, or maybe the Royal Plume set, where you get the elemental burst damage. That's going to be increasing your damage and allowing you to just, you know, deal even more damage with his elemental burst that you're going to be using constantly anyway. So that can definitely be beneficial to you. Even the 4-piece set might be worth it with him, with how often you are getting that elemental burst. but I don't really know. As I said, don't take this, take this with a grain of salt, as I don't have the character, can't really test him out too much, but from what I can tell, you can just spam his elemental burst to no end. Alright, I know that one was a little brief, but I'm giving my little thoughts on Venti, especially compared to Sucrose. I think Venti is incredibly strong, definitely deserves his 5-star title, and being able to spam his elemental burst is kind of insane. And when you compare him to Sucrose, I could definitely tell why you might want to use Venti over Sucrose for that elemental burst spam, but Sucrose has the benefit of having glasses and cute animal ears, so I'm going to be playing her regardless. However, Venti is very strong, and his ability to spam that elemental burst is very, good, especially since that one talent gives so much energy to your party. I'd say the only major advantage to Sucrose would probably be the fact that she provides elemental mastery to your party. So with her one talent here, I'd say one major benefit to Sucrose is her elemental mastery and how she can give it to your allies, as she has Catalyst Conversion here. When Sucrose triggers a swirl effect, characters in the party with their matching element have their elemental mastery increased by 50. She also has another one where it gives 20% of her elemental mastery. So if you're building her for elemental mastery, you're going to get huge benefits on your team, as that's just going to scale your elemental reactions really well and allow her to be a very strong support compared to Venti. However, just being able to spam that elemental burst on Venti is incredibly strong and definitely a fantastic option for your team, especially if you're lacking a bow user. That's going to be it for the video, though. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like, comment below. Always appreciate chatting with you guys down there. And subscribe for more, as I am going to be pushing out plenty of more Genshin Impact content as always. Anyhow, my name is Blossoms, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.